Hello, everybody. Thank you for showing interest in live program. If you don't hear me or if you don't see our presentation, please write in chat. Sveiki visi. Malonu, kad prisijungėte. Tikimės, kad nuotolinio seminaro būdas padės jums stebėti mus, net ir atostogaujant prie ežero. Keletą praktinių detalių lietuvių kalba. Jeigu kas nors neveikia, prašome skambinti mums 85-205-3170 arba rašyti info@liveprojektai.lt. Taip pat matome, kad keletas žmonių turite ribotą arba interneto prieigą arba ribotą galimybę stebėti seminarą dėl to, kad naudojate ne Google Chrome, Opera arba Firefox. Todėl siūlome pereiti prie Google Chrome, jei tik turite galimybę ir grįžti į seminarą. Taip pat prašome klausimus rašyti questions skiltyje anglų kalba, o visas techninės detalės į chat galite rašyti mums lietuviškai. Chat skiltį mes valdome organizatoriai, o question bus skirta mūsų svečiui. So I will go back to English and will present our webinar. It's Live Project Budget and F Forms. It's devoted to those who are preparing applications for live program this year. And I'd like to present our honored guest, Henrik Toremark from Sweco, who has experience in several live projects in Sweden. Besides, he has experience in other programs in the Baltic states and in Ukraine. So I give floors to Henrik, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Austra, and hello, everyone. My name is Henrik Toremark, and just like Austra correctly said, I am working at Sweco, Europe's largest technical engineering and architecture firm. We are represented also in Lithuania, so you might have seen our names. We have offices in Vilnius, in Klaipėda, and in Kaunas. My group is based in Stockholm, and me, along with some Dutch colleagues mainly, are working exclusively with EU-funded projects, as I said, in different European-funded programs. We do everything that you can do connected to EU-funded projects, and that includes to initiate projects in the fields of sustainable urban development, wastewater treatment, environment, climate, as well as transport and infrastructure. We support consortia, sometimes as a part of the consortia, sometimes as a consultant, in writing applications, and when the applications are approved, which they are to about 75% in our case, we provide project management tasks as well, or support with it. Today, I will not talk more about Sweco in particular. I will guide you through the do's and the don'ts of writing a live application. I know that many of you, at least according to the participation list, are writing a live application for the first time. And I am targeting mainly you, because if you have written one application in the live program, usually you have already been faced by all the immediate question marks that you get when you're writing a live application. I welcome questions at any time, or commentary to what I say. There is a question section in the chat which you can use. I'm not sure that I will be able to write an answer in real time, but at least we will have a little wrap-up session towards the end of this, and I will be able to cover your questions when coming there, basically. And if it's something that is more tricky, I am not sure that I have all answers in my head right away, I'll be able to answer you on Thursday or in August. I have chosen, or I've suggested to structure the 3 seminars or webinars that we have according to, first of all, go into the project budget and the F forms, then look into the project actions and how to describe them, how to get the logical flow through the project, and finally looking into the administrative forms and a project outline. I would, if you are preparing an application, I would, however, of course, advise you to look into the administrative forms and the project outline already now. Those are very important parts of the application. It is just that if we try to put a time order to this, it is logical to start by asking how much will it all cost and how much money can we get, because at least when you are a consultant, that is the first question you get. You always discuss the money first, and then you go into the concrete activities and the motivations of why to implement the project. Nevertheless, we will start with an introduction to the life process. First of all, defining a problem, which is very much the key to a good life project. Secondly, we will discuss, when you have the problem, how do you realize whether or not it fits to the life program. We will look into the most important documents or the reference literature that you will need when you write the application. And finally, and most importantly today, we will look into the particularities of the financial F forms, where you fill out the budget lines of the project. We expect this to take 2 hours. I think that I will be speaking for about 1 hour and 30 minutes. And after that, we will have a 30-minute question session. Let's see how long time it gets. It depends very much on the number of questions that you have. And I am eager to answer your questions. It's always more fun if we can have a sort of dialogue in this, even if I feel like I'm holding very much a monologue right now. I hope that you see the presentation. We will jump over to the next slide, slide number 3. And today, I've also been able to see in the participation list that what direction that you're interested in. I've been asked to speak about traditional projects in environment, in particular the field of environment and resource efficiency projects. This is also along with climate change adaptation, the field that I am most experienced with, so I feel quite confident in this. If you would have questions, I will bring up some particularities connected to nature and biodiversity, for example. But if you have any questions that are not covered today, please let me know in the questions. It will be documented, and I hope that I will be able to answer your questions by next time in that case. The program life, or the sub-program life, environment and resource efficiency, is mainly focused at developing, testing and demonstrating new technologies. It's a relatively strong technology focus in this program, as well as building capacity among authorities, both on national, regional and local level, as well as among other stakeholders, for example, NGOs. The different sub-programs here, nature and biodiversity and environment and resource efficiency, are quite different. I want to say that. So actually, life, climate change and mitigation and climate change adaptation are more similar to environment and resource efficiency than nature and biodiversity. So when you write an application, always use the reference literature rather than listening or referring back to this presentation, because there are particularities of the different fields that I can impossibly shed light on during today's relatively limited webinar. There are other projects beyond the traditional projects. It is first of all preparatory projects, which means basically technical design studies for the field of environment. There are also integrated projects. Those are huge projects, usually budget-wise, which target a large territorial scale. For example, the sea between different countries, and coordinates a large number of measures there. There is also technical assistance grants. Those are focusing on integrated projects, the preparation of those, since there's very much coordination behind. Generally, in a life project, there is a lot of coordination behind, but as important is to be sure that your project is following the different rules and regulations set up in the life program. This presentation today will take reference in the following documents. You can find all these documents on Life's homepage. I'm sure that you have been there looking. The application guide, the evaluation guide, and the performance indicators, as well as a lot of other documents that are useful, can be downloaded in an application package that is specific for the different sub-programs and the different topics. I recommend you strongly to start by having a look in those. The must-reads, if you want, if you don't feel that you have time to read it all or enough attention to read it all, you should focus on the following pages, as what I think, at least on just to get an overall view of the program. Then when you have more specific questions, you will be able to use the guides for applicants, for example, as a great reference book that will answer most of your questions. Usually you need to use it in a PDF so that you can apply, or that you can search for specific keywords and find explanations, because it might not always be very logical, the place where you find things. But first of all, the application guides. I've said that page 21 to 28 is of very much importance. This is where the program sets out the different prioritized topics and the links to European Union legislation. Those are very useful to get a feeling for whether the project is fit or not to the life program. They are called in the different sub-programs, for example, in nature and biodiversity, they're called a little bit different, but you will always be able to find them, and you will always have to motivate your connection to, first of all, EU legislation, and second of all, the priorities within the program. If you match the priorities, or the thematic priorities that they're called in this sub-program, you are likely to get the higher evaluation score. On page 38 to 69 is the instructions to the application. This will shed light on many important aspects. Make sure to read this before you start writing. It helps you a lot, and it will save you a lot of time. And this is also what we will focus on during this webinar series in 3 parts. In the evaluation guide, which is also found in the application package, first of all, look at page 5. Here you will see the award criteria. This is what the strategist will pay specific attention to. You know which parts that you need to invest more time and effort in, and which parts that are not as important. As an example, you can see that, I will not open the guide now, but there is one award criteria, number 7, which is called EU added value in terms of transnational green procurement and uptake. There is no minimum score here, and the maximum score is 5, compared to other topics where you can get 10 or 15. This means that this topic is perhaps not the most important. You would even be able to motivate transnationality of the project, green procurement, very badly, and still have a successful proposal that is approved. On page number 15 to 16, you can have a look at the national distribution of funds. This is only valid for environment, for the environment sub-program. This means that the European Union has made a division of all the funds available within the LIFE program, and some of the funds for this division is not very clear. There is a complicated formula to it, but it's partly based on the population that you have. That means that small countries, such as Sweden, for example, or Lithuania, has gotten a relatively small budget, whereas huge countries like Germany has a huge budget. And in the case of Sweden, Sweden has almost used up all its budget for the budget years 2014 until 2017, and that means that it's relatively pointless to apply within the priority of environment this year, because there is such a small budget. If you are not getting international partners, for example in Lithuania, Lithuania had a relatively small budget from the beginning, but has not too many approved projects, and therefore there is still a lot of budget left. Therefore, congratulations, you are in a good position to apply, and they will be looking for proposals from the Baltic states. If I see that the commentary field is going warm, I cannot understand Lithuanian, unfortunately. If you have any questions to me, please write it in English, and I will try to answer as fast as possible. I also think it's smooth that you write it in the chat field rather than the questions field, because I'm not able to manage it entirely smoothly. If we go over to evaluation guide, pages 19 to 23, this is perhaps the most important question, because here you will find 4 pages of questions, and those are the questions that the evaluator who will look at your proposal holds on his hand when he's making the evaluation. We need to remember that the evaluators have very limited time to evaluate a proposal of 120, 160 pages, and they will, by natural reasons, not have the opportunity to read every sentence or every section. They will try to keep it simple for themselves, and we have to try to keep it simple for them. So if you look at the questions written in the evaluation guide, you should be able to answer or have a fairly good answer to all of these questions. If you have that, if you think so, and if the evaluator thinks so, you will get a good evaluation score. So keep this in mind. Also, the performance indicators are very useful to have in mind from the beginning. The performance indicators is the tool for the European Union or for the European Commission in this case, actually, to evaluate and compare different projects' results to each other. So these are standardized result indicators of projects. For example, we will be able to clean this certain amount of water, and we will be able to clean the substance X with this many percents. We will remove this from the water if you talk about the wastewater treatment plant, for example, or it also quantifies CO2 emissions, for example, in tons CO2, so that 2 projects are comparable to each other when they're making the evaluations. This doesn't mean that you should try to exaggerate the indicators of performance, but it helps you, or it's a good guideline to what is important for the European Commission, to what they want to see that you're emphasizing in your proposals. These are the 3 main documents that you should pay attention to. You will realize that there are many questions that are not answered by the application guide, mainly, or the evaluation guide. Then you will have to look into the modal grant agreement. It's also part of the application package, and it's the model for the contract between the European Commission and your future projects. This means that there is a lot of information. It's relatively hard to find your way through. But again, if you use the search function, you will be able to have most of your questions answered by looking into this. Also, if you feel lost, every country has a number of national contact points, and you will be able to find those through the European Commission live page. They will be able to guide you through certain parts of the application, or with rule interpretation in some cases. But anyway, it's important to keep in mind in the end that it is the executive agency for small and medium-sized enterprises at European Commission that makes the final judgments. You should always use the literature, the reference literature, as your main reference, and not these presentations, or sometimes even not what the national contact points say, because these are all relatively subjective interpretations of the same rules. The best thing is to have a contact at the European Commission that can help you interpret certain rules that are unclear. Although this is quite complicated to get such contact. But we have had cases in the past, just to let you know, where we used we could take another program as an example, Horizon 2020, a large research-focused program, also under the European Commission. We tend to use the national contact points for help to interpret certain rules when you have a complicated situation. And it has happened in the past that the national contact points make another interpretation than the final evaluator does at the European Commission later on during evaluation. And therefore there is always uncertainty margin. And I think that the bottom line is, or the important point is, to always describe every motivation, everything, keep everything as simple as possible, basically. Make it easy to understand, use a lot of figures, so that at least the evaluator understand how we have been thinking. Then in life, there is also a possibility, if your proposal is approved, the executive agency for small and medium-sized enterprises are able to suggest or propose or even force you to do changes in your proposal that will be applicable in the grant agreement, the contract, finally. We will go over to the next point, and now we will actually start to look into a live project. You have the background, you know what documents to look into, but now we will start asking ourselves, do we really know what is the problem? Do we know where the shoe is hurting? Because this is the problem description in life is very much the key. This is what every project has to start with. First of all, is our problem an environmental problem, or is it partly, or is it a cultural problem, or is it a problem with business model? For example, if we have low cost effectiveness at the solar panel factory, is this an environmental problem? Probably not. If the problem is impacting, mostly negatively, different ecosystems, biodiversity, or the climate, then we're quite likely to deal with an environmental problem. You must know the challenges in your specific context. For example, it can be a problem. I think that most of you, as Lithuania is also a country near the Baltic Sea, know the problem with eutrophication and the lack of oxygen in the Baltic Sea. This is a problem that pops up in Sweden on the coasts every now and then with poisonous algae, these green stuff that are that flourish on the sea surface, which makes it impossible to swim and which kills fish in the Baltic Sea. You must know the geographical context. Sweden is contributing and has contributed a lot over the years to the eutrophication of the Baltic Sea, but there are also other countries and different industries. For example, we are even dealing with chicken feed-up plants in Belarus, for example. There's also a geographical aspect to the challenges, that even a country that is not on the Baltic Sea is contributing to eutrophication in the Baltic Sea. So you have to understand the geographical context and the challenges of that. Also, the ecological context. You should understand, for example, if you have eutrophication, are there any species, any specific fish that is more threatened or more damaged by the eutrophication than other species? This should be known and thoroughly explained in the proposal. And finally, the socioeconomic challenges of carrying out the project or putting new measures. As an example, if you want to do climate adaptation measures, for example, on beaches, let's take Nida in Lithuania as an example. Say that the sand is moving out in the sea, since there's a very small stretch of sand, and you want to carry out some sort of climate adaptation measures, for example, planting weeds in the sand so that it becomes stronger and doesn't move away. Can you do this all of the year, for example? No, you cannot carry out the implementation during the summer, probably because there will be tourists laying all over the place, and you don't want to disturb the tourists and the income for the local people and the municipality. Then you will have to carry out the actions only in the winter, and do the weeds grow in the winter? Perhaps not. Then you will have to find other times to carry out the project or do such measures. You have to know very well what has been done in the field already. How have the environmental problems been mitigated in the past, and how does your project add some more value? How do you take the next step? This is important. And one part which we realize when we write proposals along with clients, municipalities, for example, we usually lack the baseline data. We are asking them for some sort of scientific background to why you would like to apply certain kind of measures or a certain kind of technology, or some modeling of how the measures, taking climate adaptation measures for coastal protection, for example, how do these nature-based measures actually influence other beaches around or the long-term situation at the beach? Usually this kind of information is lacking, and this kind of information is very helpful to get a good score from the European Commission in a LIFE proposal. You can also imagine that, for example, there has been pilots carried out in the past in the Netherlands. Those are also relevant to Lithuania. You need to know the whole field on the European level, at least. At least this will help strengthen your case and get you a better score. Also, you have to at least think about whether the problem has a transnational character. Speaking about the problem of eutrophication of the Baltic Sea, this is a very obvious transnational character, but there are other problems that are not as clear. You should keep in mind that even if the project that you carry out seems to work in a very local context, perhaps this local context or a similar local context exists in other countries around Europe. If you can motivate the transnational character of the project, this is a quite easy way to get a few extra points, although it's maximum 5, as we said before. And when you have identified your problem, one important thing is to look at alternative funding sources. This is usually what the consultant does first, and also the national contact points. They will ask you, do you know enough about the problem, for example, or does it need more research before you can carry out the project? In that case, perhaps the Horizon 2020 program is more suitable. Or if the solutions already exist, this is a quite common problem within life that is looking for innovative technology. If the technology is already widely spread, then, I mean, widely spread, you could say it's widely spread in one area. It's widely spread in Scandinavia, but not yet in Southern Europe. In that case, it might be more suitable to start some sort of cooperation exploitation project, for example, within Interreg, which is under the European Regional Development Funds. So you have to ask yourself, am I developing a technology, an innovative technology, and will this technology help mitigate the problem that I have identified? We'll jump over to this lovely construction. I think that, well, I think that there can be much discussion about this, but if you fulfill those three criteria, the Trinity criteria of life, I would say that your project is fit for preparing a proposal, at least. Those are, first of all, making sure that the environmental problem that you should have identified by now fits the thematic priorities or the EU legislation. For environment and resource efficiency, those are described on page 21 to 28. Make sure that there is a good fit to the program. Otherwise, your project might be passed, but it's much more likely to be passed if you have a good fit to the priorities and that you can motivate that. Secondly, technological readiness. LIFE is a very technology-focused program, actually. This doesn't mean that it's only about investment projects in large-scale technology that you want to implement it, but rather to develop close to the market, efficient or cost-effective solutions that are not yet exploited or not yet used all over the European Union, but have a good potential to be used for that purpose. In traditional projects, or traditional projects for environment and resource efficiency, this is translated into pilot projects and demonstration projects. I'm sure that you have seen this. It means basically that if you have a pilot project that you use a technology or a methodology that has never been used before elsewhere, or that you're using technologies that are relatively innovative but have been tested before, but you apply some sort of new process or new way of implementation. This might also work, that you're packaging, for example, well, different technologies, say 3 different innovative technologies into a package, and you call that a circular solution, for example, if there is some sort of circular economy link between the different components of the cycle. It can also be demonstration projects. This means that you have a new or partly new technology that you apply in a new or partly new context. And the new context can be geographical, that you try a German solution in Lithuania, for example. Does it work? It could be socioeconomic, and it could be ecological, that you can basically try a solution in a different sector, in a different country, or in a different in different circumstances elsewise. I would recommend you to look at the evaluation criteria, the questions again on page 9 to get a better view of this. And then the third part of the Trinity is the exploitation of results. And this is very much how you connect your project to much larger European context, both in terms of existing legislation, strategies, and regulations. What does the European Union want to do within this field? If you can connect your project to the overall strategy, you're quite well off. But it can also be or it also has to be, actually, it needs to be both parts. When you have developed a solution in your local context, or your regional context, or your national context, or if it's an integrated project in your transnational context, then you would like to take the best parts of this technology or this methodology, process, implementation way, and spread that to other similar organizations, target groups in the European Union. And it might be useful to start with disseminating or with spreading the results within your own country, but the project also needs to include this component of spreading it largely to the European Union. And yeah, we will get into different ways of doing that successfully during the webinars. But yeah, so conclusion is, if you see that your project fits to these three, you need to do some research in the reference literature. You're quite well prepared to start writing a proposal. We will take a small example just to illustrate this a little bit. Let's say that I'm working for a municipality. The municipality is running a wastewater treatment plant that takes care of all the household dirty water and clean it, and then it lets out the water to a river that goes down to a lake. But we have a problem at the moment in this municipality. Many men and women in the municipality are working with fishing. They're fishing for a living, and they are whining they don't catch as much fish as possible because the fish is dead to a large part. So what is our environmental problem? Well, it's dead fish, but we need to quantify this first of all. We make some measurements, some analysis, and we realize that 10% of this certain fish X is actually dead. And we try to realize, why is this? We bring in some dead fish to our laboratory, or we send it to another laboratory, and we realize that the fish hold very high levels of antibiotic resident substances. This might not be a realistic case, but those are expressions that are very much discussed within the European context. So antibiotic resistant substances in the fish. And we try to, first of all, now we know the extent of the problem, but we do not know from where the problem stems. So we have to start, we have to start track back, and we realize actually in the water, in our wastewater treatment plant, there are high levels of antibiotic resident substances in the water. So we realize perhaps these substances are coming from somewhere on top of our or more upstream than our wastewater treatment plant. We realize that the substances are actually coming from people. We have a lot of old people in this municipality, and they are consuming very much medicines. And a big part of these medicines are antibiotics, and therefore some antibiotic resident substances are coming out. And then we have to look, now we understand the problem and the cause of it, we can track it back to human users, and we have to start looking for different alternatives of what we want to achieve. Do we want people in the city to consume less medicines. Well, they're old and they will probably suffer if they don't. That's not perhaps the best solution. The easier solution would be to somehow remove the emissions from the medicines at our wastewater treatment plant. And we realized that this might not only be a problem that we have. Other municipalities, there are 10 other municipalities located around the lake, and they might also be contributing to the dead fish situation. And they also have fishermen that are whining. Therefore, who do we target? Well, we target the 10 other municipalities that are emitting pharmaceuticals to this lake. And when we start to investigate the context larger, we realize that this problem actually exists in many parts of European Union. So we know what we want to achieve. We want to remove the emissions of antibiotic resident substances in our wastewater, and we want to increase the capacity of municipalities around the lake on how they can take care of, or how they can reduce the levels of emissions. And what are we going to do about it? Well, we call some technology provider and we ask, what kind of solutions do you have for this? And they say, well, ozonation is that you push in ozone into the wastewater. This would actually remove the antibiotic resistant substances, but it's very energy inefficient. It takes a lot of energy to produce the ozone that you bring in. But this technology provider is interested in testing a new solution, which they call spectroozonation. And that means that you use spectrometers to dosage the ozone. And through that, this becomes a very energy efficient technology. So this is basically the outline of the problem and what we can do about it. And if this actually works, the result would be happy fish, happy fishermen, as well as, which is part of the result indicators, reduced or eliminated emissions of pharmaceuticals. I hope that you get an idea about the problem formulation at least, and we will bring this case back later on where we are discussing the logical chain of a project. If we now have green light to start writing an application, what are the typical features of a live project? It's quite good to know the limits that you need to keep within when you're planning and when you're discussing with partners on how to prepare the proposal. Usually, they say that it's very unlikely that a project on under €500,000 is approved. I would say that most projects are at least €1.5 million of total budget, and environment projects usually go up to €4 or €5 million, and nature projects usually go up to €8 million. There are exceptions to this, but they need quite strong motivations. More ambitious projects are possible. The co-funding for the work package period or work program from 2014 until 2017 is 60%. It's quite important to know that they are planning to lower this for nature, for environment and resource efficiency from 2018 to 55%. So it makes sense to apply this year. Public organizations, private, commercial, and non-commercial companies, as well as NGOs, are welcome to apply, both as coordinators and associated beneficiaries. English is preferred. They give you the option to write it in Lithuanian. It's it makes it a lot easier if you write it in English from the beginning. For many reasons, it will make it quicker. You might get a better evaluation and so on. Projects can start in July 2018, earliest in this call at least, and the duration is usually between 2 and 5 years. Costs that are booked or put into the books before July 2018 are not eligible. This is important to know. And the number of partners differs from project to project. The most important thing is that you create a consortia that incorporate the necessary expertise, basically. And under those circumstances, it doesn't really matter if it's a big or a small consortia, as long as all partners have a valid role and have sufficient budget to seem committed to the objective, basically. When it comes to the next thing that you need to think about is, of course, how to create a purposive consortium. You have to keep apart 3 groups. That's at least what we usually say. Those that are affected by the problem and the solutions that we plan to develop. This is the target group. There are usually stakeholders involved on a local level. How do we make them participate actively, and how do we use their experience and knowledge? Those are the stakeholders. And there is also the experts. Those could be people that we have already within our organizations, or it could be external consultants. The coordinating beneficiary is responsible for the overall project implementation. This is usually the executive organization, the organization that is carrying out most of the implementation actions, or an umbrella organization for smaller organizations that are all doing different actions on the field. This could be a regional administration that is already over in the hierarchies that are over the municipalities. So they coordinate, and the municipalities are carrying out actions. Preferably, and there was a question on this before the seminar, preferably the coordinating beneficiary has carried out a EU project before. It is a tricky world of reporting and coordination, and this is valued by the evaluators. Otherwise, it is possible to subcontract some activities to an experienced consultant. Some guidelines, at least, that Life is recommending that you're hiring a full-time project manager for all the duration of the project. And this would be a project manager that works 100% with the project. Perhaps he or she has some assistance from a financial expert, for example, to manage some more complex questions. The alternative, if you're subcontracting consultant, is to still have an official project manager that works with a project about 20 to 40% of his or her work time. Also, associated partners are responsible for carrying out their own activities. Associated partners could be responsible for communication or dissemination of the results, help replicate the solutions to other countries or other sectors. They could help to manage this connection from the EU national regulatory strategy framework, or they could bring in some expertise of different kinds. It could be expertise on how to apply a solution or how to apply a German solution in Lithuania. It could be to connect different sectors if you want a circular economy thinking. Could be an agricultural expert that helps you understand how you can use phosphorus from the wastewater treatment plant that we were speaking about before. or it could be technological expertise, of course. There are different other kinds of participation that require no formal responsibility from the organization. Many organizations have been working in EU projects in the past and have sometimes negative experiences because they were not properly prepared the first time. And those organizations are usually a bit hesitant to enter new EU projects. In this case, they can become a reference group or consultation group member. This way they will be able to have their fees covered to come to different seminars. Well, having this arrangement, it's recommended to write a letter of support that you can attach to the proposal. It can be a subcontracted party, although subcontracting is always subject to procurement, fair procurement. So it's hard to say that the specific organizations will be part of the project later on. It's also possible to cooperate, for example, with a local NGO and cover some of their fees, even if the NGO has, compared to the overall project, so small costs that they are not part of the project. But you can create an activity, for example, that makes this possible. And we also got the question on small and medium-sized enterprises and whether they can be a coordinator or not. It is theoretically possible. All private commercial organizations, also non-commercial organizations, need to fill out the financial simplified annex in the application package. If you do so, you will have to fill out some information from your annual report. And well, taking one example here, for example, you can read the exact description or the exact instructions under page 13 in the evaluation guide. But your equity, if you have a project budget, or if you want to coordinate a project with a budget of 2 million euros and a duration of 3 years, 3 out of 4 of the following need to be fulfilled. Your equity need to be larger than 0.4 million euros. And then there is a number of ratios that are related to your debts and assets, as well as your operational profit. So if you have a look at those, you can do relatively easy in half an hour a feeling for whether you're fit or not. Still, if you're not fit, you can still be a coordinator, but you will need to submit a financial guarantee from a bank when you are applying for the first pre-financing if the project is approved. So there is no need to have a financial guarantee during the application stage, but later on, if the project is approved and if you want to have pre-financing from life, you will have to submit the financial guarantee. And this is a quite common. Also, larger companies, for example, working with an airport that handles a lot of Ryanair flights, and the Ryanair people are coming in, or they're flying much more in summer and winter. They have a large income during summer and winter, and a very bad cash flow during spring and fall. And because of that, they cannot. They were not fulfilling that. They had to submit the financial guarantee in order to get the pre-financing. So it's nothing strange, but it needs a bit more hassle, basically, to get the financial guarantee from a bank. And it will cost you money, although this cost is eligible under other costs. So now we'll get over finally to the introduction process. I can see here in the comments, even if I don't exactly understand that life project budget and F forms have not been covered yet. That's very correct. But in order to cover this part correctly, we need a short introduction to whether your problem is fit or not, because that's where we have to start. Starting to design the budget is could be a waste of time if your project doesn't fit later on. Some introductory recommendations to writing the application process if we are here. first of all, always visit the information seminars that the different national contact points are arranging in every country, as well as in Brussels. They provide you up-to-date, valuable information. Some tricks. They usually have a good session on pitfalls that they have identified from the last year's call. This is very useful, as well as you can find a good network of people that you can apply together with. I feel that almost always when I go to a seminar, it's not wasted time, because you find partners that are similar to a project that you're working on, and sometimes you can merge your efforts and therefore save time and get a better and more purposive project. You can save a lot of time by looking at the performance indicators from day one. This way you will know what the European Commission is expecting from you, or what they want to tell the politicians that they have achieved during the work program period. Important is, maybe it's obvious to most, to the younger generation that never prints papers, this might be a good recommendation. Print the application guide and the evaluation criteria. This helps a lot when you're writing, because then you can open and look for rules all the time if you don't have multiple screens. When you explain both the financial costs that we'll go into today and later on the project actions, describe everything as if you were speaking to an idiot. Keep the sentences simple, short, keep the technical wording and explanations somehow popular and understandable also for a person that lacks experience in this field completely, and still provide quite thorough explanations. Keep it logical. Let every sentence somehow lean on the sentence before that. Also, something that we feel quite often we usually get assignments of reviewing applications when they're already done, and they want us to get a second opinion before they apply. Small things that they can change. We usually see that many partners do not keep their explanations or their motivations behind a certain methodology or technology objective. There's a lot of subjective thoughts or reference to certain people, for example, that are not you have to be able to see that there is a motivation behind them, or a scientific study, for example, or model test. These definitions and the motivations are key. It's also important to use the same definitions throughout the proposal to make it easier for the evaluator. It is important to assign one person responsible for preparing the application. If you just split up the tasks on many people, it's quite likely that some of the parts are not carried out, and that the language in the proposal looks very different from one part to another. That doesn't look good for an evaluator. You have to make it, even the application, to look compiled and streamlined somehow. This application manager, who will work on 110%, should coordinate very frequently the project. This person should also divide responsibilities and follow up on the responsibilities. You provide tasks to the people that are supposed to carry them out. You should never be scared of using the people a lot, and then you should make sure to get some input back from them. Might sound obvious, but there's a lot of different tasks for an application manager, and it can be easy to forget the follow-up. You should always request massive input. All partners should send as much material as possible. You can save that in one folder, and you will need it when you write the B forms, for example. It's very useful. Still, you have to keep it short and concise when you describe the different actions. And then one final recommendation is to allow at least 1 week of margin to insert all the data in eProposal if you're not already working with eProposal. It's a quite complicated system, and it can take a lot of time towards the end, near the application deadline, because a lot of people are using the system, and the European Commission says every year that they will make it possible for more people to use it, but it crashes every now and then. So keep this in mind. And the most common situation, I think, excuse me, is that especially 3 weeks before deadline, you realize that will never work out. Your proposal feels terrible. This is very much similar to the complexes of writing your master's thesis or a PhD. We would always recommend you, in any case, even if you are in doubt or very stressed, that you realize that the proposal is not as beautiful as I wanted it, the figures are not ready, and so on. Apply anyway, because the European Commission will look into every proposal, and they will give you a quite thorough evaluation based on the evaluation criteria. And this evaluation will be very useful when you reapply with the same proposal the year after, which is usually possible. So keep this in mind, that you will get very good feedback, even if you're almost certain that your application or your proposal will not be passed or approved. Okay, now we will start with the financial F forms. I will not go into detail on how this application e-proposal system works. I just want to conclude that the earlier you go in and start fighting with e-proposal, the faster it will go later on. Basically, it's very good to get familiar with the system. This is also a place where you can test how different rules work. So we will, if you find it, it is on well, I put the link, but it is on the same page with the application packages in a small window. Press this link, and then you create a new project. Basically, you have to choose the sector and so on already here. This is the only thing that you cannot change after you have entered it, so make sure to do it right. Here you can see, for example, I've entered 1st of July 2017. That's not going to work because the project can at earliest start 1st of July 2018. And then you press next. And today we will open the financial application forms. You find them under proposal, open the financial part, and then you see lots of costs. One other thing that I would like to just add here is reports. You see there's a section 2 steps behind financial part. The reports are quite useful to go through too, to just make sure that that the costs that you have entered are fulfilling all the criteria within the program. Well, it's called F forms, but in fact, I would like to call it cost category rows. Every row represents one kind of cost or one category of cost, and it needs to be indicated separately from other costs. And the different cost categories that we can use are indicated here. I'll go through them almost one by one and look into the particularities of each of them today. You could note right away that F5 is only applicable within Nature and Biodiversity program. This relates to well, land use, basically, and this is not so common in other programs. So we'll not cover that one in detail.